And tonight I'm going to talk to you about mental illness and recovery from mental illness. But just what is mental illness? The dictionary defines it as a health condition characterized by dramatic alterations of thinking, mood, behavior, and or any combination associated with distress or impaired functioning. That doesn't sound very definite. Legally speaking, mental illness is unsoundness of mind sufficient to render a person unfit to undertake decisions regarding right or wrong, or decisions regarding theirs or others' well-being. That sounds a little bit scary. Maybe that's why some people use euphemisms to define mental illness. You guys know, like out of your mind, nutty as a fruitcake, having a screw loose, non-compos mentis, a sandwich short a picnic, a few pickles short a jar, mashugana, cuckoo, a total whack job, and all sorts of crazy labels. I hate labels. Labels are for jars, no matter how many pickles are in them. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And when people ask me to define mental illness, I like to tell them that madness is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the outcome to change. Or that there's a fine line between genius and madness. Or maybe something more defiant, eh? Like, what manner of sanity is it to be well adjusted in a profoundly sick society? Of course, if you've been to medical school, you'll define mental illness using the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition. The current Holy Bible of psychiatry. I know because I took psychology in university. I've also been in and out of mental institutions for half my life. Sometimes in restraints, and sometimes not. I've seen all sides of the mental health system. I'm a provider and a consumer of mental health services. But I've always loathed being referred to as a consumer. Where did they ever come up with that word? It makes me furious. I don't recall shopping around for my mental illness. And if I was to shop for one, I'd choose one with the most words. No boring old bipolar disorder for me. Something like chronic adjustment disorder with mixed disturbance of emotions and conduct. Or maybe I choose borderline personality disorder, because that pretty much covers any symptom you care to exhibit. Or maybe I choose one that I'd enjoy getting, like hyperactive sexual desire disorder. Woo! Or hallucinogen persisting perception disorder. Acid flashbacks. Sorry, but I guess that means most of the baby boomers are insane. That's me. Or maybe I choose a really bizarre one, like fictitious disorder with predominantly psychological signs and symptoms. What this means is that faking having a mental illness is in fact a mental illness. Like Klinger and MASH, or Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I've got a message for all you young people. Don't start smoking cigarettes. Not because they cause cancer and emphysema, but because they cause mental illness. According to the DSM, nicotine addiction is a mental disorder. And they've got you if you try to quit. Because nicotine withdrawal is a mental disorder too. What's next? Motivational deficiency disorder for being a couch potato? Pedestrian mobility disorder for jaywalking? I was diagnosed plain old bipolar disorder, or manic depression, as it was once known. People often ask me what it's like being manic. Nobody ever wants to know what it's like being depressed. No. They don't want to know about the gut-wrenching darkness that's enveloping my life. They want action-packed psychosis. So I tell them, it's like you're totally out of touch with everybody in the whole country, and you think you're the most powerful person who can change anything. Sort of like being Doug Ford. Oh, and you start to believe crazy things, like the Leafs are going to win the Stanley Cup, or that Donald Trump is going to be elected president again, or that the planet is being controlled by a secret cabal of Aleister Crowley worshippers operating out of the Ontario Hydro building. You see, they were rounding up all the enlightened people and transporting them to the far-off planet of Yehuppetsville. Yehuppetsville was somewhere else. It was the kind of place you could only believe in when you were enlightened, where cigarettes were good for you, the pajamas fit, and none of the doors were locked. What I loved most about Yehuppetsville is that I was Madonna, and I was dating Brad Pitt, and I looked fabulous in a straitjacket. I still look fabulous in a straitjacket. And speaking of hallucinogen persisting perception disorder, I remember when I first got diagnosed. My nurse, Blanche, delivered the diagnosis. You know, dear, you're manic depressive, but you'll be fine, just as long as you take your medication. It's just like being diabetic, sweetie. You can manage. Vivian Lee was a manic depressive, you know. Frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn. I should have said that, but I just stood there, glaring back at her, drool dripping down my over-medicated face from my over-medicated brain. My brain was shrieking, no, 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 I'm not crazy, not me. But I was crazy. It took me a long time to realize just how crazy I was. I was in denial, or according to the DSM, diagnosis-induced resistance disorder. But I got over that too. My recovery has been a long and arduous journey. And that is what my one-woman show, Now Who's Crazy Now, is all about. I'm Elly Litvak, and if you want to know more about my story, come on over and say hi. Thank you.